The vines were wound up tight against the metal like wires, and the leaves had been taken, set into the ground by the pounding of heavy steps, the image of a winter's fence post, topped with what seemed to be the retired head of a spear, doomed to avert curiosity, alone in violent antagonism, and for whom was theirs a greater distance than those who lay beyond these walls. They were alone in separate chambers, with cold, aged white paint for windows, and little but an old feather from some wandering bird that had once floated in, as a reminder of the life that they had chosen to leave behind. These people cannot hear me, and I in turn am unable to hear them. One stared blindly at me one day. But I never experienced this kind of loss of communication. It was like I had accepted it, and so moved on. But I don't really talk to anyone I meet anyway, because we're shut out by the ear-mounted corks, then pull out a glass excuse when the moment strikes. But then transport arrives, so we can retreat to cocoons. And though we have windows, they are no longer of interest, when the burden of cessation of action gives way for the need to engage in futile acts of distraction. I whispered, "Shouldn't I be distracted?" I wasn't. And I felt guilty, and there was a hum of inaction behind me, pressing me into a state of unrest. Do something. But what do you do when there's nothing you want to do? Apparently, something. Because soon my pen had lost some wasted ink. Then the pen would have had its day and I mine, but instead of grieving a lost legacy, for this was not yet the last pen, I would be only grieving for my lost time. And in time, we could have been alive and at rest. That is the greatest gift, I'm telling you. It is the greatest gift, which is why it never fails to confuse me. That I can't be at rest with all these strangers. It's like an interlinked web of originless social distress. It only confuses me. And it was on that day that I met an acquaintance. I felt like Jean, I think that's how you pronounce it, in The Fall. It was on that day that I broke the confusion and found nothing but rest on the other side. There was no social distress. His name was Adam. I'd seen him at church before. It was on the 27th of July when he suddenly offered me a slice of his clementine. It was often that fresh fruit was shared among the congregation after a service as a sort of rehabilitant for the gap in our souls so dearly taken on by the stomach. I accepted, and immediately we began exchanging stories. Soon, our friendship extended further. We even hired a small boat on the lake, and Adam did most of the sailing, but I didn't care. I was at rest, and it was the greatest gift that day. In time, Adam turned to me and asked about the weather, the sun, and the sky. "Why is it so cruel?" he asked. "Will it explode and kill us? Isn't it so generous to share its blue pigment with the sea?" And I felt like I didn't need to answer his questions, for they seemed more like statements, at least to me. And once, I threw Adam into the lake, and even commandeered the boat. I never saw him again after that. It's funny. People can be tossed out of our lives like that, although I guess the case of Adam could be a bit of an ironic, more literal version of this. Forget. I believe some say that he drowned, but I was at rest. It's the greatest gift. That day on the lake was followed by some days of retrospect, quite like to do this because it allowed me sometimes to assess the past from a distance, and to give myself full capacity to do so. I kept a room in my house empty for times like this. Steel padlock lay in the center of the floor. I pick it up, then use it to lock the door. I am naked, holding a pen and a leather-bound book under one arm. The leather seems to be a gift, so to speak, from past acquaintances. I'm in a state of pressure. A dim skylight casts a watery hue onto my page. My paper is finite, my pen is my only pen, and I don't know what to write. But the discomfort of inaction takes hold of me. So I draw something instead. It was two pals on a boat, like old friends. It's strange that one of them was set to die that day. No, but he didn't mind. Soon after, someone arrives at my room. He knocks without knocking and lets himself in. Little fucker. But I suppose I have my role, and they have mine. He won't talk, but I sense him playing around in some foolish style, like a jester of sorts, making eyes at my page. Then he's gone. Or is he in my pen? Or maybe something else. Couldn't really have had much choice, there's not much here. But soon I forgot. And at some root of two you start thinking, visions of eyes and awful creep in. I guess you wonder why. It just seems kind of strange to put that here. Was it my friend, who's now something less than something? It makes little sense to me why that would be the case. He has no reason to invade my vision, lest the reality sense grows too dull for him. It's hard to say how long I've lived in this movie. It's hard to say how long it's lived in me, but often I feel a horse, some violent stallion, playing roundabouts through fields and gliding through velvet passageways towards cliff edges. Why would someday he decide to avenge his inaction, to void himself, to make amends for his lost time, and to leap? At last, something to worship, this feeling. The period in the room ends. I unlock my padlock with a sigh and move to my front door. I can hear the rain on the grass, and I leave the confines of my house, to lay within it, absorbed by its simplicity, as the sunrise casts mellow hues of ambers across a new sky, with dark silhouettes of the passing birds above casting my soul from this dew-soaked ground to their place among the mountainous cloud. My murders, what were they now but far-off dreams? Indeed, what were they now but far-off dreams? Hours pass, some minutes feel like days, then my star becomes half sunk. There's a feeling of remorse for its approaching departure, but, in a way, I savoured the light, drinking it down, as the last of it reached my eyes, and danced about my senses joyfully, and with respect, for we were both not long for this world.
Aye. Yeah, it's the show. Aye. Alright, that's the show.